This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Previously on Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
Other than that, not a whole terrible lot. Just staying up with comics and what all that implies. And, talking Star Wars any chance I get.
I was just, I don't know, hadn't done that for a while, so that was fun to do. Taxus, what did you think of the pictures? Did you have a particular favorite?
I really like the ray training picture.
Yeah, you're talking about the scene where it features a bunch of people that are elegantly dressed and apparently a planet that is called Canto Bight. It's a casino of sorts. And
also wonderful snack food.
One of the images that stood out to me was the shot of Kylo Ren holding up his saber in some sort of an action pose. Of course, it's Adam Driver.
Your own definitely has its perks. Shrink, because your mom doesn't tell you to turn down the stereo and junk like that, which is a real drag. Shrink, because moms are genetically programmed to hate music played at the appropriate level, right? And my dad, forget about it. Shrink. He can ruin a Led Zeppelin reunion concert, you know what I mean? Shrink, because he hates any music played at the appropriate level. Shrink.
Sheen.
Yeah, she looks like she's really launching off into some sort of lunge attack.
Shrink.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then he's also in that shot with Carrie Fisher, and he's wearing that brown glove over what would be his prosthetic arm.
It's interesting. That's interesting. Maybe he's taken up falconing. Maybe that's what his glove's for.
Right.
Okay, that was not cool. We need to lay down some ground rules. We'll get to that. Right now, I think we need some time apart. All right, that's it. Shoo, you stupid crows! Shoo! That is not a worm!
Greetings, Scoundrels. This is Jay Krebs from Coffee with Kenobi. You can find my blogs there as well as my review of Star Wars fashion called Core World's Couture. You're listening to Darth Taxus on Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
When it comes to the Sith, Star Wars fans know, always two there are, no more, no less, a master and an apprentice. It is a rule that has survived the millennium. But how did that rule come to be, and more importantly, why? Author Drew Karpyshyn set out to answer that question in 2006 with Darth Bane, Path to Destruction, the first book in the Darth Bane trilogy. Last month, we announced our summer book club with Jay Krebs, and speaking of Jay, here she is. Welcome back, Jay. How you doing?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. I have been so looking forward to this, and I am ready to jump right in.
Awesome. Excellent. I think you are officially the first member of the Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels 5-Timers Club.
Nice.
Yes.
Woo!
You're an inaugural member. That's right.
All right.
That is awesome. I will wear that badge with pride.
The fifth time we do the show is the most special of all because you get one of these, a membership card in the 5-Timers Club. I want you to come with me right now, and I'm going to give you a chance to look in on one of the most exclusive clubs in the world.
Whoa, I guess someone needs to learn the club handshake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're great.
You're great.
Why don't each one of us give an initial impression of this book and some of our overall thoughts, succinctly, if we will. Jay?
Well, this has definitely been a trilogy that has captivated my attention and imagination since it was first released back in 2006. And I've read the series 3 times, and I am now currently listening to it on Audible. Jonathan Davis gives an amazing performance, which I highly recommend.
Are you
Yeah. Should be noted that's Jonathan Davis, not of Korn fame.
When he makes a motion in the Senate, everybody moves. His holocron only dispenses intergalactic tax advice. Hyperspace proceeds at a serene pace when he is at the helm. His Snoke theory qualifies as a thought bomb. The rule of 2 is the drink minimum at his club. His Sith code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the same as his luggage. When he plays cards with friends, Idiot's Array has a different meaning. He is the most interesting Sith in the galaxy.
I always drink, and sometimes, when I'm desperate, I drink Dulce Shakespeare. Stay seethy, my fools.
I smelled something burning.
My muffins!
Hello, Scoundrels. Consider this for a second. We are less than 6 months until The Last Jedi. Pretty cool, right? While you ponder that, this is what is coming up on this week's show. In the news, a leader in the Star Wars collecting community needs your help. We have that story and an update on streaming Star Wars content in this week's edition of the news. Another month is almost upon us. That means Taxus has another edition of Skystalking. Find out where to find all the Star Wars celebrities in July. In our hypothetical segment, Joey Letson of the Animanicast joins us to discuss the top 10 humorous moments in Star Wars. Before we go, we'll get into listener feedback and silence fools. All right, that's the rundown. It's time for episode 31 of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
I'm really looking forward to tonight's hypothetical.
One of the things that makes Star Wars so beloved by people is the effortless humor, almost like our show.
Except we end up with humorless effort. But anyway, I think people take themselves way too seriously. I mean, look at me. Nobody takes me seriously, so I just follow the crowd.
Do you think people need to laugh?
Oh, always. I think there's a problem with modern humor. It seems like it either has to be politically critical or full of cussing to be lauded as comedic genius. And I say that. Sometimes a joke is just a joke. It's supposed to be stupid with its own suspension of disbelief. Nowadays, people expect you to explain what a door is doing in a knock-knock joke.
Surely it's not that bad.
It is, and I'm letting that one slide.
Well, that's one of the reasons Star Wars holds up. There's so many great moments that people love to laugh about.
I agree. Do you remember that time Vader choked Ozzel?
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Wait, how is that?
Oh, and then there was that time when Alderaan blew up.
That was tragic, not funny.
Certain point of view, Dennis. Certain point of view. Knock, knock.
Why is there a door?
Knock, knock.
Okay, who's there?
Death Star.
Death Star.
Boom! Welcome back, Scoundrels, to the phrenological podcast that thinks funny-looking foreheads are highbrow humor. I'm your co-host and keeper of dark humor, Darth Taxus, coming to you from the bounce house of my flagship, the Assessor Collector. And with me is the guy who puts the pun in punchline, Dennis, the Phantom Menace, Keithley. Dennis?
Hello, Taxus. Hello, Scoundrels. Whew, here we are in June. It's been a busy summer already. You been doing anything Star Wars lately?
Well, actually, I have some special thanks to give to you. And, this, no surprise to you, of course, because you're the one that did this most generous offer. But so we had lunch the other day, and you surprised me with a wonderful trinket from Celebration Orlando. And it was number 55 out of 250 of the Scott Harbin, Texas's own Scott Harbin, piece of work, Vader with some Death Troopers and everything. And I love his stuff anyway, and you know that. And you got it signed, and it's beautiful. I mean, I'm just, it's like, I just don't know where to hang it up because I just don't even want to expose it to the elements. It's so gorgeous. But yeah, I really appreciate them. It's beautiful, and I posted some pics out in our Twitter account, or my Twitter account, and everything. And so if anybody wants to go see it, I'll probably repost it again, just to make it recent, But thanks again. Cool. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate that. Oh yeah, my pleasure. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I had a good time meeting some of the artists. I talked to Scott a bit, talked to Jerry Venterstedt, who I got his arrival print, which is Vader arriving at Cloud City with
squadron of stormtroopers in front of a shuttle, which is really great.
Yeah.
And then, the artists there were all great. So were the vendors, except for that one guy I met outside the con. But Taxus, D23 is next month at the Anaheim Convention Center, and there are some expectations in the fan community that Lucasfilm might announce the next Star Wars story film that's going to follow Han Solo. So, fellow RetroZapper Mike Harris recently asked on the RetroZap Facebook page what movies fans think they're going to announce and what movie they're hoping will get announced. So, what are you anticipating and what are you hoping for?
You know what? I'm just going to, I'm going to anticipate and hope at the same time. Can I do that?
Yeah.
I think they're having a lot of success with recent storylines, and I think they're going to keep to that. You know of my desire to see Old Republic stuff, but
right.
I think Obi-Wan. I think an Obi-Wan movie.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reason to believe that might be the choice. Ewan McGregor keeps saying that, they haven't settled on anything and there's nothing official, whatever, but he always gives a cock eye when that happens. And so you kind of think that maybe he's just fulfilling the terms of his NDA. And so, there's that possibility. And, we continue to get a lot of noise about a Boba Fett film. And, a lot of people said, no one asked for that, or I don't need that. Well, no one asked for Rogue One. And I'd like to see a Boba Fett movie just to see him in a film that gives him the reputation as the best bounty hunter in the galaxy. And I don't know, I feel like there's an awful lot of smoke there, so I wouldn't be terribly surprised if that happens. Honestly, I'd kind of like to see Boba Fett at some point in Han Solo 2. I'm assuming that if this Han Solo movie does well, they'll do another Han Solo movie, and it'd be kind of cool maybe to see Fett in that. And so, maybe not as a standalone character. I'd be good with a Kenobi movie. I'd kind of like to see them just do something new with new characters. I feel like we've been getting all of Han, Luke, and Leia's backstories and filled up with comics and books recently. So, I wouldn't mind, let's hear about another Rebel Cell. I mean, okay, we did that in Rogue One. Fine. Let's hear about some side adventure for the Resistance, at the time of the First Order.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I just want to see something a little, some other Rebel action that's happening between Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. I'd like to see a new content, new characters, and if you're going to use some existing characters, make them ancillary to the story being told. Right. So that's my take.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Eventually they'll get to the point to where it's almost like when it will be maintaining its success, right? I just feel like they're going to be like, we're super saturating it from this time period. We need to really reach out. And that's when we're going to start seeing those real, like maybe Old Republic things, I mean, you and I discussed what I would love to see, and this is kind of piggybacking off of our Bane discussion last show. Really, canon's up in the air right now, right? We know Yoda's been around for at least 990. Is it 990? Is that how many years? Almost a millennium, right? He's been alive. We know that the Sith have been in hiding for almost a millennium, and that there was a Sith war. We know that that's canon. Sith, Republic War. We know that's canon. And that's along the lines of the backstory, to Darth Bane, right? I would love to see a young Yoda as a Padawan, like Netflix series, and maybe the establishment of the Rule of Two under Darth Bane. They could almost be two concurring storylines. So you still have the good side and the bad side to kind of please both fan bases. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see those things. I think we're far more likely to see Old Republic on some sort of a Netflix, HBO type of a setting than we are in a movie. I think that's a background and a plot and a setting that's going to take more development than a single 2-hour movie.
Oh yeah.
But whatever we're likely to get in the theaters, I think is going to tie into more familiar properties. But anyway, just something to keep in mind to be looking forward to. By this time next month, we'll certainly have more details about things Star Wars, and hopefully we'll have the new standalone.
Yeah.
But why don't we head on over to the news?
We've got to make
speaking of D23, we are in a slow period of news in advance of the big Disney convention, so there's only a few items to touch on. So, Taxus, you're up first. What do you got?
Yeah, well, we've got some good news. Despite our previous beliefs, The Clone Wars is still on Netflix. As we previously discussed, subscribers were receiving the notice that The Clone Wars was available until June 7th while watching the series on Netflix. Well, June 7th came and went, and The Clone Wars is still available on the subscription service. So, yeah, that's good news, Dennis. I mean, we didn't really think it was going to go away, right?
No, not at all. I'm glad to see it's still there. I firmly believe it's always going to be streaming somewhere.
Yeah.
Hopefully they won't be putting up another notice like that and freaking everyone out again in the near future. But,
fool me once, right. Shame on you.
Hopefully we'll start getting Rebels streaming here soon too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this next story is rather unfortunate and disappointing. By now, many of you probably heard the news that Rancho Obi-Wan, the museum that is home to Steve Sansweet's collection, was robbed over the course of several months. Steve Sansweet shared the news with Star Wars community via Rancho Obi-Wan's website and an email to patrons and members of the museum. Over the course of 2015 and 2016, more than 100 rare and valuable items were stolen from the museum. Most of these items were carded action figures, both domestic and foreign. Wow. The total appraised value of these came to more than $200,000.
Wow.
Carl Edward Cunningham, a well-known Star Wars collector and R2 builder, and a friend of Steve's, was charged with felony grand theft.
Wow.
So some of the items have been recovered. However, many are still unaccounted for. If you think you may have come across any of these items, you can check the list of unaccounted collectibles on ranchoobiwan.org. You can also email any tips you might have to tips@ranchoobiwan.org. So this just sucks. There's no two ways about it. I mean, for so many reasons. One, I, as an attorney, I'm always careful to use the word alleged until everything's been proven. But it looks like Mr. Cunningham has turned himself over to authorities. There are some reliable sources that have indicated that they tracked down this whole theft to him.
Right.
And he was a friend of Steve's. Steve was entertaining him in his home over this period of time. And, it appears that Mr. Cunningham was stealing things out from underneath him.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a prior episode of The Sandcrawler today, and they were talking about this. And, they were pointing out, that the collecting community is pretty tight knit. And this is really damaging to a community like that. And, I agree with everything they said, and I just add to it this: it's that it's more than just the collecting community; it's the Star Wars community.
Right.
Steve is, he's I guess he's back doing some work with Lucasfilm, but he formerly worked for Lucasfilm. He was responsible for fan relations for a long period of time. He acquired a lot of his collection through that, and he is nothing but gracious with his time and fans and collectors.
Yeah.
And to see someone take advantage of like this is, it certainly is a big deal to Rancho Obi-Wan, but it's a big deal to me. I had the good fortune of being able to attend the gala in 2015, and Steve was a super busy guy, but he thanked me profusely for being there, for supporting the museum, and I just wanted to say thank you for letting me see your stuff.
Yeah,
he doesn't put it all behind glass panels and cabinets. it's sitting out there and open. Now you're not supposed to be handling it, but still. He made it he opens his home, he opens his collection for fans to come and see, and to see someone just take advantage of it like this just completely stinks.
Well, and of course, I'd like to remind everybody that until due process is completely served, just because somebody turns themselves in and there's evidence that's stacking up against them, still in our system. Now, you might be listening in another country that has a different system. That's okay. But at least in America, until you're adjudged guilty, we're just going off of what we see from the storyline, right?
Right.
And so it's really unfortunate when something like this happens. I mean, just the trust element is the biggest hit, right? I'd like to think that this is going to be an outlier. You know what I mean? Like, this is not going to be seen again. I don't, and I think just the community shock might do it. Of course, this might invite people to say, Oh, wow, they got that much money for that stuff? Let me put my criminal mind to action and sign up to join Rancho Obi-Wan. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that stuff's going to happen. I think this is a kind of a one-time event. I'd like to, at least. And I think we shouldn't have a lot of reaction. You know what I'm saying? Like knee-jerk reaction to it?
Well,
you know?
I agree with you. I mean, I think the good news out of this is the collecting community rallied around Steve, and it was another fellow collector that brought this to his attention.
Right.
And so, it's there's the Star Wars community is a big family. We bicker with each other. We have heated debates about things. We sometimes take it too far, and we can be hypercritical and harsh like this.
Yeah.
But nobody wanted to see anything like this happen. This is just ridiculous. And so I really think you are correct. This is going to be an outlier type of event. I don't think it's going to be the norm, but it just stinks that someone would take advantage like this. And so, I hope they round up everything, that the collection is restored. It sounds like they're well on their way. But again, if any of you out there come across something that you think might belong to that collection, go to ranchoobi1.org, check the list. Yeah. And if you have any information, make sure you email it to that tip line.
Yeah. So I just bought like a whole group, batch of previously used tank top underwear that Gamorrean guards used. Should I be concerned about turning that back in?
Check the tip line. All right.
What about the couple of tidy whities that made their way in there too?
Moving on.
Okay.
Time for Skystalking.
Like we're being watched.
I am wondering, why are you here?
I'm looking for someone.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say.
All right. Well, with July just around the corner, it is time for Skystalking. In this segment, Darth Taxus has scoured the internet and discovered where all the Star Wars celebrities are appearing next month. So, Taxus, where is everyone going to be and when?
Well, and first off, we've got Winter River Books on July 4th in Bandon, Oregon. Man, they have all the fun in Bandon, Oregon. Lucky. Timothy Zahn is going to be there. So get your Thrawn on with Zahn and get him signed. Next up, Connecticon in July 6th through 9th in Hartford, Connecticut. I've got Courtney Taylor, played Jahani in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and Julian Glover, General Veers himself. So that's always a good. After that, Anime Midwest, July 7th through the 9th in Lisle, Illinois. Lex Lang did Star Wars video game voices. Rogue One voiceover artist. Did you know that, Dennis?
I did not.
Mm-hmm. And also Lego Star Wars voices, too. So after that, our friends up north, Montreal Comic-Con, July 7th through 9th in Montreal, of course. I've got Howard Chaykin and Jeremy Bulloch. Howard Chaykin of Star Wars comic fame, and Jeremy Bulloch, the original and possibly one of the greatest Boba Fett's. And other residually bit parts, right?
Right.
Yep. After that, we've got Garden State Comic Fest, July 8th through 9th in Morristown, New Jersey. Greg Hildebrandt. Now, this is interesting because that's that classic, the strong-looking Luke Skywalker in the classic heroic pose, and Leia, down in front of him. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah,
very in my office.
Yeah, very heroic. That would be a good one. And Jan Duursema, if I'm saying that right, I hope, of Dark Horse Comic Star Wars artist fame.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And coming up after that, in Raleigh SuperCon, July 14th through 16th in Raleigh, North Carolina. Dana Snyder, Grabala the Hutt in the Clone Wars. Got Star Wars author Kevin J. Anderson. Got Tom Fowler with Star Wars comics. Claudia Gray, another favorite Star Wars author, is going to be there. And Brian Kong, who is a Star Wars artist. I believe he does some trading card art and everything. Okay, after that, we got A-Kon. Not the one here in Dallas, but I think that's already come and gone. But July 21st through 23rd in Winnipeg. I think that's Canada. Manitoba, thank you. Christina V. Valenzuela, who was ZOOM in Star Wars The Old Republic. Then we got Florida SuperCon, July 27th through 30th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Dana Snyder's going to be there again with Clone Wars. And we've got Man, I was practicing this earlier. Doki Dokkan. That's so weird. July 28th through 30th in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Got the Harp Twins. You know, they did that fun little Star Wars thing. So, and then not really Star Wars related, kind of, but it's more like RetroZap related. Val Kilmer's going to be at the Tampa Bay Comic-Con. I don't know. He might be hosting a barbecue, so this could be Chris and Joe's big chance to go some barbecue with him. You know?
Right.
I don't know. So yeah, there's not really much else going on. Either, you know, there's going to be possibly some later additions to some of these shows, or it's just really hot and people are taking a break. I don't know. But
yeah, not a busy month in July. You know, a lot of Star Wars stuff is going to be happening at D23 though, which is of course next month. That's
true.
But as Taxus was alluding to, make sure you check out the websites for the official listings of the celebrities that'll be there. There's all kinds of postponements all the time. And yes, you also suggested they frequently add people last second too. So, Scoundrels, if you get the chance to meet any of these Star Wars celebrities, we want to hear about it. Yeah. Send us your stories and pictures to sqpod@retrozap.com.
And a quick note, D23, do they have signings there at all? Because I tried looking on the website and I just didn't find anything definitive.
Not usually, no.
Okay, good. Then I don't feel like a complete waste of space right now. Good.
This is Joey Letson from the Animanicast, and you're listening to Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
Star Wars is more than just Jedi and Sith, blasters and lightsabers, and starfighters and starships. Star Wars is so much more indeed. What makes Star Wars is the special effects, the sound effects, and the music. But there's even more than that. One of the key elements, and that is often overlooked, is the humor. We haven't done a top 10 list on Star Wars in quite a while, so we decided to change that, and we've invited Joey Letson from the Animanicast to help us put together a top 10 list of humorous moments from Star Wars. So, Joey, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Nice to be here, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, glad you could join us for this.
You're now officially a recurring guest.
Ooh, that's right.
That's right. You still haven't hit the 5 Timers Club yet, but, you know, maybe in the future.
Maybe.
Right. So this is what we're going to do. In our tradition, which actually hasn't happened for about 20 episodes, with these top 10 lists, we're going to go around the table, taking turns, kind of sharing some of our favorite humorous moments from Star Wars, be it at a situation, a quote, scene, whatever it is. We're largely limiting this to the movies and the television shows. But Joey, why don't you get us started? What do you have first?
All right. Well, my first one is actually kind of an honorable mention of all things, because I had to mention Jar Jar for this. I think Jar Jar gets he's supposed to be the comic, you know, the fool, the one that's supposed to be the funniest. For me, he's more hit or miss most of the time. I do think Jar Jar has a ton of funny stuff. But the funniest thing I've ever seen Jar Jar do was actually in the Clone Wars. It was season 4, episode 4. And the episode was called Shadow Warrior. And in this particular scene, Jar Jar is going face to face with General Grievous, dressed up as Boss Leone. And Jar Jar has to pretend that he is the leader of the Gungans, since Boss Leone, I believe, is wounded and can't appear there for some reason. But there's this whole bit where Jar Jar is trying to adjust his chair, and he's doing this whole cranking thing, making himself go up, 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 and down, and General Grievous is just looking at him.
So, I hear you have decided not to aid our attack on the Naboo.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We must put end to unfortunate bang-bang conflict.
It was a great effort and cost for me to bring my armies here.
Me so sorry that, boss. Excuse me. Misa was receiving muy bad advice.
I don't know. It's such a subtle. It's perhaps the most subtle that Jar Jar has ever been, but it's so ridiculous just seeing him try to look like he's in charge and going back and forth between the voices. Was definitely a laugh out loud moment for me looking at Jar Jar.
Yeah, Jar Jar gets a bad rap, and I think we've talked about this before. The Old Testament. Ooh, how about that? The original trilogy guys, saw him in Phantom Menace and just didn't understand that, we grew up with kid elements in our movies too. Little things that made us that giggle.
Yeah,
and that's what he was there for. He's the jester. He's the counterpoint to all the seriousness in the Phantom Menace, because let's face it, there's a lot of seriousness in the Phantom Menace, right? And so it's good that they were able to keep his character going through the Clone Wars like that and actually write some quality scripts for him. I kind of feel sorry for the way he ended up after reading, the Aftermath book with it. Yeah.
In some ways, I myself have not read Aftermath, but I've read the scenes, the spoilers, and all the excerpts and all that kind of stuff. And it just, I think it's from a certain point of view, as one would say, because Jar Jar would be kind of, he's kind of an outcast in some ways from the adults, but in some ways he's always been that way, and he's getting to do what he's loved to do, which is to entertain kids and to be silly and so I don't know. I'm not really in the whole camp that says like Jar Jar got what he deserved in the end. I think there's nothing wrong with being a clown.
Right.
There's my own brother is a clown, for goodness sakes, and he loves it. So
all the world loves a clown.
With the when it comes to Jar Jar, I thought he was always written better in the Clone Wars than he was in the movies. I think
absolutely
the objection that I had to him in the movies is not that he was a silly character, and it was not the way he talked, and it's not that he was brought in for comedy's sake. It's just that the introduction of his lines and his antics is often jarring. It doesn't blend in as well as a lot as the humor does in the original trilogy. So I personally, my favorite episode with Jar Jar was in the Clone Wars was Bombad Jedi. Him bumbling around in one of Anakin's robes, especially he shows up on a platform and some of the Naimodians look at him and like, "Oh, there's a Jedi," and he goes, "Where's the Jedi?" And he has no idea that they think he is a Jedi wandering around. So that was a fun episode for him. So Taxus, what do you have for us?
I'm going to start almost backwards. Usually I start with the first movies, right? But I've decided to kind of change my approach, and I'm going to start kind of more recent and go back. I've got basically what I think was the funniest moment in The Force Awakens was when Kylo Ren is having his little hissy fit, and he is going to town on that computer with his lightsaber, and the two stormtroopers outside kind of marching in, and they're like, let's go the other way. And they just turn around. There's nothing that has to be said there. And that was such a great humorous moment for me. And that movie had a lot of other great humorous moments as well. But to me, that was the pinnacle of it.
Yeah, I think when I was putting together some of my favorite moments, and I was thinking back to the films, I think The Force Awakens actually has the most humorous moments in it compared to any of the others. And it may be just because I've seen that movie a lot more recently than the others, that it was easier to come up with ideas from that one. But there's a lot that just stand out from that. Well, for my selections, I came up with a very long list, and so I've decided to kind of theme them, at least for the first couple of my entries. And so the first one I'm going to go with is from A New Hope, and that is when Luke and Han and Chewbacca head up to the detention block to rescue Princess Leia. And so they've arrived off the elevator, and they've shot up all the cameras, and then the communication button starts beeping and flashing on the console, and Han answers that, and he's just kind of stumbling through that line. He delivers that line. We had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you? And so
everything's under control. Situation normal.
What happened?
Had a slight weapons malfunction. but everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Just that exchange, and then he goes on, he shoots the console and so, boring conversation anyway. And it kind of there's a twofer here because you were just talking about The Force Awakens, Darth Taxus. He's on his ship when the Guavian Deathling and the Conja Club shows up, and he looks to Chewbacca and he says, or he gets asked what he's going to do. He says, same thing I always do. I'm going to talk my way out of it. And Chewbacca just kind of gives him that look. He was like, yes, I do every time. Well, there's an incident where he didn't actually talk his way out of it. But so anyways, that's my first one. That's Han
great.
Solo trying to talk his way out of it at the detention block. So, Joey, what do you have for us next?
Well, I have another moment from A New Hope that it's not really much of a line. It's more of a sound effect and an action. And that, of course, is when R2-D2 is just going through the desert by himself and the Jawa jumps out of the shadows, yells Utini, blasts him with the little stun thing. And R2, and R2 hits the ground with a squeal and a huge thump, and that thump got louder with each and every iteration of Star Wars. I think with every special edition it would get a little bit louder, but I remember just seeing that in the theater, and it just gets a laugh each time. It's just so silly, and it's kind of a pitiful moment. You feel sad for R2 at the same time, but you can't help but laugh at how silly this is with these short little creatures, zapping him and everything. Because mine.
Adding to that, he gives that little, whimper before he hits the ground. It's sort of like somebody got clocked in the head and they're just kind of like, and then they hit, But that's such a great moment. And I wouldn't really think of that comedic, but you do kind of laugh about it, especially the reaction of the Jawa afterwards. He's all, got it.
Well, and that's also great because it is the introduction of the Jawas in that movie. And I was 3 when A New Hope was originally in theaters, and of course it was just Star Wars then. But the droids were the number one things I remembered back at that age, and apparently that's what I always told people about, and the way they chirped and chittered. And the number 2 thing was the Jawas, about how they, just kind of babbled on with these funny, their funny voices and their funny sounds. So that definitely ranks right on up there. So Taxus, it's back to you. What do you have next?
All right. Well, still working down from, I guess, more recent to less. I'm okay, and I guess I could say like a totality on this, but if I had to pick, we all know Alan Tudyk added almost, I would say he and Donnie Yen were the comedic elements in the movie, and to a certain extent Riz Ahmed too in Rogue One, and Tudyk had so many great moments and lines through there, but to me, the funniest part is when they're in the middle of action, in that guerrilla action in Jeddah City, and Jin blows away that Imperial droid, and immediately after K2 walks around the corner, goes, "Did you know that wasn't me?" And she just says, yeah, and then afterwards he just commences to give them the riot act about leaving him behind, almost like Marvin the Paranoid Android or something, while he's casually taking out all these stormtroopers. That was such a great line, such a great moment too. The kids and I giggle at that so much.
Yeah, his K2SO's entire involvement in Jeddah City is one great humorous moment. From that to the where he confronts the stormtrooper, where he's got Jen and Cassian with them, and he gets confronted about where he's taking them. Them? They're prisoners. I'm taking them to prison to imprison them in prison. I love how he has he can't think on his feet like that, and so he just kind of stumbles through it. And that was a great ad lib that Tudyk came up with.
And the honesty that he has too. Like, do you know the chances of her using that on you, that blaster on you?
Right.
It's high. It's very high. I went into Rogue. The biggest fear that I had with Rogue One, because I knew this was going to be a somewhat dark film, and I knew going in that the chances of everybody dying were very high.
Yes.
It's high, very high.
Very high.
Anyway, so I was worried that comedy would not be present. It's an element that is in all of the Star Wars films, and like you said, Dennis, it's often overlooked. But you can't have a successful, fun Star Wars movie without it, I think. And I was so glad to see K2SO bringing kind of a somewhat 3PO and but a little bit grumpier, perhaps. I'm not exactly sure. It was fantastic. I loved his portrayal.
He has the honesty of a child with an old person's just I don't care anymore, kind of a combination. And I think it's really it just hit me. What if they tried to pull off the K2SO lines, irregardless of the situational thing with, did you know that wasn't me, for example, because the droids look exactly alike, with a flesh and blood actor. I just don't think it would be the same, because you've got basically, to me, the people that are mainly delivering the funnies in this have something that make them distinctive from everybody else. Like Chirrut, he's blind, for example, and that's kind of his little platform for his jokes, Right. And then you look at K2SO, he's a droid. And so we're already kind of separating our mind from, the fact that everybody else is probably going to end up dying. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't have been the same if it was Jen delivering, Jen delivering those little one-liners, or somebody that was part of the team. You know what I mean? That was a human or alien or otherwise. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. Well, my next entry here also has to do with droids, and I'm returning to A New Hope and going to the passenger area of the Millennium Falcon, where Chewbacca and R2-D2 were playing chess. And of course, they're playing that holo chess game that they've got going on, and R2-D2 pulls off a move that upsets Chewbacca, and so C-3PO chimes in. He made a fair move, screaming about it, can't help. And then Han chimes in, let him have it. It's not wise to upset a Wookiee. And which eventually, leads to Han reminding C-3PO that that's because, 3PO says, no one ever worries about upsetting a droid. And so Han says, well, that's because droids don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose. Wookiees are known to do that. And then Chewbacca kind of gives that self-satisfied smirk, at which point C-3PO turns to R2-D2 and says, he turns to Han and says, I see your point, sir. And he tells R2, I suggest a new strategy, R2. Let the Wookiee win. It's not quite one of the biggest laugh out loud moments of the film, but it's that little bit of humor there just further solidified the chemistry that cast had in the film. And it was moments like that I think, and I don't want to turn this into a prequel bashing session, because it's really not intended to be, but while the prequels did have their comedic moments, and I'll get to some more of those later, it just didn't they didn't resonate as well, and they didn't kind of develop the same chemistry amongst their core lead characters the way they did successfily amongst the core characters in the original trilogy.
And let's face it, that's pretty much a dead scene, right? I mean, they're just killing time sitting on a spaceship. And what else are they? You've got Luke doing a little bit of training and everything. That's fine. But they take that dead space and they did something important with it. They did something that was just, you're right, Dennis, it just felt natural. Like, if you're just killing time, what would you be doing? Anybody want to play a game? Sure. That's it's kind of an overlooked little moment, but it's really good.
It's a remarkable moment too, just because, it's focusing on three characters that have no facial expression, really. I mean, yes, Chewbacca does have, he growls and everything like that, but most of, especially back then, I mean, you couldn't manipulate his face that much. And of course, R2 and 3PO, I mean, it's completely body language, really.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's remarkable that, we're able to, with the voice, with the miming and everything like that, how it all comes together just magically, really, to work out. And it's such a quotable line. I mean, it's words of wisdom from 3PO.
Right. And there was a great callback to that scene in The Force Awakens when Chewbacca is sitting in the bunk trying to recover from having been shot in the shoulder on the Falcon. And Finn sits down at that chess table and accidentally turns it on. And then Chewbacca kind of sits up real straight and looks at the table. And so you can tell he's really into that game.
Yeah.
And so, knowing this background scene helps in The Force Awakens because you then get the idea. It's like, oh, he really hates to lose at that game. That holo chess is something that's important to him. So, all right, Joey, you're up again.
All right, I'm going to put a big one down here. This is really a moment versus just a set of lines, but I'm going to call it Yoda's deception, or perhaps Yoda the fool. When Luke first lands on Dagobah, and Yoda is acting like a strange, crazy little old man, and driving Luke and R2 crazy.
R2. Move along, little fella. We got a lot of work to do.
No. Stand up.
Hitting him, with the stick and eating his food and throwing all the stuff everywhere. It's just, I just loved that scene as a kid, and just seeing, the difference that, from one extreme to the other of what Yoda really is. It's just fantastic. Frank Oz did a fantastic job in that.
Oh yeah. In fact, we kind of parallel because I wrote Yoda's beating stick. That's such a great part where R2's like, no way, man, this is not right. I'm not letting him do this to us. In a way, it's kind of funny. I was going to mention that to let the Wookiee win is kind of a lesson in allowing people to bully you. And this time R2's standing up to this little green bully. It's just, hey, this is mine. I like this. No, I'm not going to help you unless you let me have it. And then, just the noises of that, just the constant tink, 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 tink of the stick and R2's servos, going on in the background. Yeah. So, and Luke's just sitting there going, oh, God, how did I get into this?
Yeah. And, we now have the benefit of having the prequels as a backdrop to that scene. And while R2 and Yoda weren't the best of friends, they kind of knew who each other were at that point. So I don't know. Part of me now wonders if that isn't a bit of a put on with R2-D2. That he reaches out because he kind of sees what Yoda's doing because he knows who Yoda is from, decades earlier during the Clone Wars. Well, and so now he's grabbing that pin and they're kind of having a tug. It's almost like, but as Joey pointed out earlier with the holochess scene, R2 doesn't have facial expressions. So, I mean, if it was a living being, he may not have been able to keep a straight face during all that. But, it's R2-D2. And so he can put on an act and, and I don't know, perhaps he didn't really understand what was going on with Yoda. But at the same time, part of me wonders if that wasn't him putting on an act to help Yoda out, maybe for Luke's benefit at some point.
Well, to throw a little bit more complexity into that, let's not forget that Yoda and R2-D2 went to Dagobah on the Clone Wars.
Oh, yeah.
And now with that in mind, I'm always thinking like, okay, so does R2 remember this part, or does he just think is he putting on an act, or does he think, oh my gosh, something is wrong with Master Yoda? He's been on this planet too long now.
He's done lost his mind. Yeah.
Yep.
No, and it's kind of funny because we think that R2 would recognize, of course, because he's got memory banks. I'm sure there could be something that he selectively stores certain things in order to make more room available for what he's doing now or something. I don't know. But do you think Yoda would have recognized who it was? And if that's the case, if he didn't quite recognize who it was, maybe when he's like kind of giving him a closer look and gives him one more whack with the stick, that kind of fits in with that retcon. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, you whack.
Yeah, well, there's that, and also thinking back, not necessarily a humorous moment, but when we first see old Ben Kenobi in A New Hope, and R2's been hiding underneath the rocks after Luke was attacked by the Tuskens, and Ben kind of looks over him and says, "Oh, come here, my little friend. He's all right." We now, again, at the benefit of the prequels, we know that Obi-Wan knew who R2-D2 was, and so they're kind of chatting there. They're just not being specific, so they don't tip off Luke, and so all kinds of potentials there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, Taxus, I think we're back to you.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with this is more of a totality thing, but it's the escape from Hoth, and specifically with Han and Leia.
How's this?
Would it help if I got out and pushed?
Captain Turner.
Mike!
Sir, might I suggest that you... It can wait.
This bucket of bolts is never going to get us past that blockade.
This baby's got a few surprises left in her, sweetheart.
And just everything going on in there. And one of my favorite moments is whenever she's just, they're constantly ragging on the Falcon, right? You're never going to get past this blockade, that blockade in this bucket of bolts. And he walks into the cockpit and tries to fire everything up. And it's like, and he hits it, because it's like, what are you going to do? And you just hit it and it's like, comes back on. Oh, thank you. That worked. Because if it didn't, how different would things have been, right? And then just all the back and forth from it, would it help if I got out and pushed? It might, and then with 3PO constantly chattering in the background, trying to give him information, that whole thing is just one roll after another for what is a good few minutes, It's wonderful dialogue to that whole thing, just like the rest of Empire.
Yeah, I think Carrie Fisher had a hand in crafting a lot of the dialogue that happened between Han and Leia and those scenes. And I actually had this, you won't be surprised because most of my moments have Han in them. But, a lot of this dialogue that you're alluding to were in my top 10 moments. My favorite line is, he's running down the hall and, he says something to the effect, we have no time to discuss this in a committee. And she, barks out, "I am not a committee." Great line. But yeah, the banter between Han and Leia is some of the best humor. And in fact, it makes really Empire Strikes Back perhaps the most humorous movie of them all until The Force Awakens arrived.
Right.
Totally agree. And it also makes it makes the romance between Han and Leia work. It's that humorous banter back and forth, reminiscent of movies from the the 40s. What's the movie? His Girl Friday and things like that, where they're doing fast talk back and forth, and trying to outdo one another, but really the tension underneath is that they really are attracted to one another. And so this. It's just fantastic stuff, and of course you add in 3PO and the tough Wookiee Chewbacca in the midst of all this. And you have this fantastic pairing, just bouncing off one another. It's fantastic.
Indeed. All right. Well, I'm going to move on to my next entry on our list, and this is a moment that doesn't actually have much dialogue at all. And we're going back to the Death Star in A New Hope, and that's when Han, Luke, and Leia, they've got out of the trash compactor. They're heading down the halls, and they come across some stormtroopers. Han takes a shot and then starts chasing them down the hall, despite the fact that they outnumber him.
It's them. Blast them. Get back to the ship!
Certainly has courage.
And he's just running down the hall. Ah! until finally the troopers end up in the barracks in the special edition, realize that there's more of them than there is him, and they turn around and start firing, and he goes from being giving a war cry to the I've got to get away scream. So that one has always been struck my funny bone.
And that's one that I didn't really feel violated with the special edition. Special edition. I guess that works. That's like effect and affect, right? No, because, originally you didn't really see why he stopped, or was it just the little squad figured it out, right? And turned around.
Yeah, the little squad figured out like, hey, it's just one of them, just turn around and start shooting. And then he freaked out. But it's so much bigger and better. I agree when he goes into essentially a landing hangar where all these troopers are just there and they're all looking at him like, "What are you doing? Who's this guy?" I remember a few. I love remembering laughs in my head, and when I go to see the movies, and that got a huge laugh and from the audience. Another one that's kind of related to that one too is when they're saying, open the blast doors. In not all cuts of Star Wars, like I think in my VHS version, they don't say the line, close the blast doors.
Yeah.
So that got a huge laugh too, in the theater too, because we heard close the blast doors and then open the blast doors.
Yes.
It's just a quick little line. And it's a funny line.
It is a funny line. It is, and I always thought that was great when I was a kid, even without that, close the blast doors line. Just how they're stuck and they're like, nobody. There's no coordination, right? Yeah, I loved it.
All right, Joey, what do you got?
All right, well, I will give it a great line from. I'm sorry, this is from Attack of the Clones. I was about to say the Clone Wars, but this is Attack of the Clones, and it's the death stick scene. Where Elan Sleazebagano, I believe is how you pronounce his name, something like that, which in itself is like, oh my gosh, really? Lucas gave him the name Sleazebag, basically, which is, I think, fantastic. I've talked to some people online that they're upset with that name because it's just so on the nose, but
it puts drug dealers in a bad light.
It's just the whole thing of seeing Obi-Wan use that classic move that we saw in A New Hope for something different. And who knows? Elan he might have become a better person because of that interaction with Obi-Wan.
Yeah, maybe he chose a different narcotic to sell too. We never know,
He rethought his life and thought, "Oh, I can make more money off this other thing over here." Okay,
I've been thinking about getting into the spice business with Cuzzy Scumbago.
Yeah, I actually like the name because one, you have no reason to know it just from watching the movie. You only find it out elsewhere in some other secondary source, and then it just drives the joke home. So it's I like that. I like it that how it really sells the joke. So all right, well, Taxus, what do you got for us next?
I've got a really quick one, and I'm gonna keep it with Attack of the Clones as well. How about that? I always liked when Anakin and Padme were off by themselves and they're talking about, they're about to go get on the transport, I guess the refugee transport or something. And, Hayden Christensen just says that line, "Don't worry, we have R2, and, Padme kind of giggles at it and R2 makes a little chirping noise. It's just a really fun little lighthearted moment that reminds you, hey, you know what? They do have R2 and things usually work out okay when you do have R2 with you, I like that moment a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the few Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi humorous moments from that movie. Obi-Wan ended up carrying a lot of the humor there. All right. Well, I am going to the Return of the Jedi, and specifically the Ewok village, after C-3PO has finished telling his epic tale of how the rebels have arrived there in their village. And at this point, the Ewoks have a council. They chirp amongst themselves, and then they inform C-3PO that they are now part of the tribe. And I love the way that C-3PO delivers that line, which is, oh, wonderful, we are now part of the tribe. That's not actually the moment, though. Having now gained Ewok acceptance, Han has got to get the mission moving again. So he grabs 3PO by the arm and he says, after 3PO informs that the scouts are going to show him how to get to the shield generator. And so Han Solo says, good. How far is it? And then 3PO just kind of looks at him and, he gestures over to the Ewoks. Ask him. And then so 3PO turns to ask before he can. Han says, oh, we need some fresh supplies too. So, 3PO turns to ask again. Then Han interrupts him and, try to get our weapons back. And again, 3PO turns to leave. And then Han pulls him back and says, hurry up, will ya? We haven't got all day. And just it's the 3PO has no facial expressions, but the way he looks back at Han, after that last one, which
is exasperated.
Yeah, he's clearly got exasperated, and he's checking one last time before he gets interrupted again.
Exactly.
Before he turns back. And I loved that exchange. Harrison Ford is just such a fantastic actor.
Oh, yeah.
But Anthony Daniels' performance as 3PO in that scene is not to be overlooked.
And they just caught lightning in a bottle when they cast all those characters, didn't they?
Totally.
Wow.
All right, Joey.
All right, I'm going to go back to, which is, like we said, perhaps until now, maybe the funniest Star Wars movie, and that's from The Force Awakens once again. And I got to go with the BB-8 thumbs up. But it's not just BB-8 giving the thumbs up that got a huge reaction, seeing it in the theater. It was just the build up to that whole scene, because this is after a huge, we're escaping the TIE fighters, a lot of tension, BB-8's flying through the, Millennium Falcon, trying to, not bounce all over the place. Mm-hmm. Finn is awkward. He's trying to impress Rey. He's trying to act like someone else. He's trying to hit on her a little bit. And we've already fallen in love with BB-8 by this point. We see how cute he is. We followed him along since essentially the beginning of the film. And so we've gotten to know this, and he does something so unexpected and so expressive. And it just tops that scene off. It just, cherry on the top of the ice cream right there of how great that is.
I remember somebody was speculating whether he was actually giving, Finn the bird at that moment, and then he doesn't decide to play along until when Finn's sitting there looking at, come on, play along or something. But no, I think it's definitely a thumbs up. Yeah.
BB-8 did the standard back and forth that 3PO did right there with Han, kind of. Too.
Yeah, he did. And I fall square into the camp that's a thumbs up. BB-8's got that big puppy dog eye, for that optic receptor that he's got. He's too friendly to be giving anybody the bird. Let's see, Taxus, you're next.
Okay. It's another Yodaism, really, and it's kind of more of the scene, but I just love how Yoda's just totally kicking Obi-Wan in the pants in Attack of the Clones when he's training the younglings. And he's making the younglings kind of giggle. It's like, oh, a Jedi Master doesn't know this answer. Oh, he lost the planet. How embarrassing, And the kids are having, oh, keep that up. You're going to find a place in the Scoundrels players, Joey. You never know. You watch out. But no, and all the kids are giggling, and everything. And it's such great, Yoda's a great teacher. And he knows when to take advantage of those lighthearted moments and kind of direct it to the educational experience, you might say. But I know little of such things, being a Dark Lord of Tax. So, but that's one of my favorite scenes.
Indeed. All right. Well, I am going to deliver what is my last Han Solo related entry onto this list, and then I'll move on to a few other topics. But perhaps one of the funniest moments from The Force Awakens is when they've got to Starkiller Base And Han starts asking Finn about what he was doing when he was stationed there, and Finn replies that he was in sanitation. And so a clearly exasperated Han Solo throws him up against the wall, and he's like, what? People are counting on us. The galaxy is counting on us. And so they go back and forth, and then Finn says, we'll figure it out. We'll use the Force. And the best line, that's not how the Force works. Especially since it comes from the guy who utterly had no faith in the Force.
Yes.
Right.
When we meet him in A New Hope. And then for him to just, chew that gravel as he's, throwing it back at Finn. That's not how the Force works. I love that line.
Yeah, and I like, along with that, I love just how Chewie's just kind of giving little shots here and there too. I can't remember what did he say about the coat. Didn't he say something about a coat too? Like in that line.
You're cold.
Yeah.
Which is topped off, which I didn't even realize until seeing it at home that Chewbacca is, when they're getting back outside again, Chewbacca is very eager to give Han his coat back so he could make sure that he's not going to be cold outside. Because of course, Chewie knows how cold it is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's kind of taking care of the old man at this point. Yeah. He's making sure he's not going to catch pneumonia out there in the cold.
Right. You almost broke your hip one time, you old codger.
Well, we can kind of need to start shifting into rapid fire gear here. So, Joey, you have a couple more you want to share real quick?
Sure. Yeah, I got. It's a hidden line. If you're not paying attention, but C-3PO with Uncle Owen when he's asked him if he speaks Bocce and he's everything like that, and Owen says, "Okay, shut up." And then he goes, "Shutting up, sir."
Yes.
It's almost hidden. There's so many little moments that you could watch the movie a dozen times and never hear it because of all the stuff that's going on. And I just remember hearing that for the first time and just going, "Oh my gosh, that's hilarious!"
That's great. Yeah,
yeah.
His little timer interest.
I had a similar experience with that line, Joey. I remember for years trying to make out what they were saying, and I don't think it was until after the special editions came out on VHS where I actually got a clear enough track that I could actually hear that exchange. And you didn't have as much on the internet in those days, and so you just couldn't look all that stuff up the way you could now. And so I remember being really excited when I finally got that line, and I got a good laugh out of that too. You got a quick one for us, Taxus?
I've got The Garbage Will Do. Yeah, from The Force Awakens. That's great. It's in the middle of all this hectic stuff. It almost feels like Empire to me, when TIE fighters are attacking and everything, and you've just got, and it's not even like a big setup line. It's just a real quick hit, and that's the funniest moments to me, or when it just feels natural, like that line, for example.
Right. I wanted to highlight another line from Rey, also aboard the Falcon, and it kind of ties into the whole BB-8 thumbs up thing. And that's when Rey was trying to find what was a wrench or hydrospanner or whatever it was, and Finn is fumbling around, and so Rey is no, the one I'm pointing at, no. That impatience that comes out there, and the way she, she's been fairly friendly and soft-spoken through most of the movie, and then she just gets harsh there all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, reminded me of dealing with my wife sometimes. I mean, I'll be like, Joey, get that thing over there. Oh, are we here? No, there. Where I'm look where I'm pointing, right there. Oh, okay. So I empathized with Finn right there in that scene.
Yeah, that's right. The band comes with so many privileges and so many hardships too, doesn't it, Joey?
Yes, it does.
How about another quick one, Joe?
Okay, I've got one more quick one, and again, it's kind of a very hidden little scene. It's the first thing when 3PO and R2 are talking to each other in Empire Strikes Back, and they're talking about turning on the heat in Princess Leia's quarters, and it essentially melts, it floods her room or something like that. Yeah. And it's supposed to be freezing, and we're going to have to, how to clean it up and everything like that. It's again, it's often lost in the bustle of all that scene. You have all these people running around, and you have these star speeders and all this kind of stuff going on. That again, it's kind of a hidden little comedic gem right there if you look for it. But really, just 3PO and R2 in general, they have they get, been referred to as Laurel and Hardy, of the trilogy, and in some ways they are. I mean, they have this kind of love-hate relationship that just two friends would have with one another, and they say so many funny things. So that was one of them.
And you didn't even need to see that scene to imagine it in your head.
Yes.
3PO freaking out about it. I mean,
and R2's just trying to be helpful.
Yeah,
it's not coming from anything. And then R2 thought it just made sense. I'm just trying to be helpful and do my thing.
Yeah, those two have a lot of priceless banter, and of course, we get all of it from 3PO interpreting for R2D2. And when one of my favorite lines there is when 3PO says after R2 is spat at him, he goes, "Don't call me a mindless philosopher, you overweight cloud of grease." just some of these crazy insults that they throw back and forth at each other are fantastic. All right, Taxus, what's your last quick hit?
All right, I got two more from Empire Strikes Back again on Dagobah. Okay. And one is, of course, the classic scene where everybody's worried because R2 falls into the swamp.
No, R2, you stay put. I'll have a look around. R2? R2! Where are you? R2! You be more careful. R2, that way.
And then his little periscope pops up, and he's just acting like it's not a big deal. And Luke's like, R2, that way. Oh, thanks. Before that. Yeah, and it's a good counterpoint, because immediately after that, you get another stressful situation where that creature swallows R2 and he shoots him across the swamp. And that's funny, too, So we got stress, funny, stress, funny. I don't know. It's kind of it's genius, really. And then the only other time we really see Yoda, in what I think is a goofy kind of situation in the movies is when, after he reveals who he is, right? And Luke's training with him, and he's like, "Concentrate," and he falls backwards. His eyes get really big, and he makes this funny looking face on it, And a lot of people had a lot of fun with that.
It's a great meme.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, we seem to have covered all the moments from Seagull's "Stop It Now." In this discussion. Well, I'm going to wrap things up then with just some Rey and Finn interaction. One, when the TIE fighters start blasting things in Jakku, and after the stormtroopers attacked, and Finn keeps grabbing Rey's hand, and she keeps responding, "Why you keep grabbing my hand?" So that one always gets a chuckle out of me. And then just prior to that, BB-8 has accused Finn of stealing Poe's jacket. And so BB-8's been shocking him, and, Finn's like, "Stop shocking me." And then, he claims to be part of the resistance. And, Rey's like, "Oh, I've never met anyone that a resistance fighter before." And he pops up, he goes, "Well, this is what we look like." Yeah. Some of us look different. Just kind of he's got no real game. He's making it up on the spot. Right. Just that, again, this is what we look at. Yes, I'm definitely with the resistance. So,
and how much of that is Rey's naivety? You know what I mean? About the whole
but she's got a pretty good smirk on her face. I don't know if that was just Daisy not able to keep a straight face when they're doing that scene, or what happened, but that I don't know. It's just priceless.
Like the Fresh One Again scene where, Cassian, you see him smiling, and they just couldn't edit it out. They had to leave it in.
Exactly. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Joey, thanks so much for joining us for this. I guess we came out to something like a top 20 list at this point. Sure. But before you go, why don't you fill in all the listeners on where they can reach you and what, a bit about the Animanicast?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, if you want to reach me just personally and see me on Twitter, you can see me at Joey in Tucson, all one word, of course. But I'm also the host, co-host, I should say, of the Animanicast over there at Retro Zap. And we review and discuss and just enjoy talking about every episode of Animaniacs in the order that it was released. So we're about halfway through right now of its 100 episodes. We've just hit episode 50, and we have 50 more to go, and who knows, maybe even more after that if a reboot actually happens. But you can reach us over at Twitter. We're on Facebook. And of course, you can go right to the Retro Zap archives of our show, which is just animanicast.com. And you'll get right to it.
Yeah, you guys are beasts, I got to say. It's putting out, watching and putting out the amount of content you guys are doing is very impressive. So, well,
yeah, we're able to connect almost every episode of Animaniacs, by the way, to Star Wars.
Right.
One of our co-hosts, Kelly, is her Twitter handle is Yoda Princess, and she is obsessed with Yoda and Spielberg, and so basically we talk about Star Wars every chance we get.
Yeah, and including your Chewbacca "I love you" theory.
Okay. Yes. Should I mention that real quick?
Yes.
You might as well, Taxus. Okay. Yeah. So here we go, folks. This is something that my brother Nathan and I, who also hosts the Animanicast with me, joke about quite a bit. In Return of the Jedi, Han is suffering from hibernation sickness, and he's in the jail cell right there with Chewbacca. Mm-hmm. And he says, "I can't see, pal. What are you saying?" And for the life of me, my brothers and I heard him say, like a dog, "I love you." Uh-huh. And then he says, "What?" And he says, "I love you. You love me."
Joey! I can't see, pal.
What's going on?
Luke's crazy. He can't even take care of himself, much less rescue anybody. A Jedi Knight? I'm out of it for a little while. Everybody gets delusions of grandeur. All right, pal. I'm all right.
And not, I love you, you love me. God, that's, I swear, that's my brothers and I, we kind of made him say that. And oh my goodness, yeah. I'm sorry for anybody which you hear that and it ruins it and you think he's saying that. I don't obviously think he's saying that, but my goodness, it's just a silly moment.
Maybe somebody needs to go to Pablo with that question. What is he saying in Shriwook? Right there. Well, what do the Scoundrels think? They need to send us something to Silence Fools to say, what do they hear the same thing? Or maybe they hear completely different interpretations, like, do you want a pizza or something?
Maybe.
All right. Well, again, thanks so much for joining us, Joey. And we hope to catch up with you again sometime soon.
Sounds great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, what a day. I scored all the memorabilia that I could possibly want. Now it's time to head back to the hotel and get ready to go home. Vendor outside the convention hall. Not sure how I missed him before. I guess I'll check it out.
Please, good people, don't crowd too close to the table. This merchandise is very rare and unique. Please let this good man through.
You realize I'm the only one here.
I'd rather you stick to A, B, or C tails and not bother with the details, sir. But I can tell you are a man of discerning tastes. I have here products and collectibles sure to tantalize the most avid collector. Guaranteed to have never been owned by anyone else before.
All right, then. Well, let's see what you have.
First off, I have a nice rare treat. It was a prototype Boba Fett action figure.
Those are pretty rare, yeah.
Yes, sir. Even back in 1977, Star Wars was concerned for the well-being of children. So instead of a shooting backpack rocket, this shoots out vitamins. Unfortunately, it never went to production due to an unfortunate accident.
What, a child choke on one or something?
No, sir. A vitamin shot out so hard it hit a propane tank, igniting a conflagration the likes that have never been seen before, destroying all the molds.
Ah, interesting. Think I'll pass. What else do you have?
Speaking of 1977, I have here an item of such noteworthy noting that you'll be astounded in your pants shoes where you sit.
It looks like red flannel pajamas.
Just in time to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, I present to you George Lucas's leisure suit. He was pictured wearing this one at one of the hottest clubs in the 70s.
You must be talking about, what, Studio 54 in New York City?
No, sir, that was filled up. So he went to the Backlot 55 in Jersey City. It was almost very happening.
Well, I doubt I'd wear that. So what else you have?
This, sir. Of all your travels, you've never come across something as amazing as this.
A bag of sand?
Not just any bag of sand. This is a collection of individually selected granules, painstakingly harvested from the tighty-whities of Hayden Christensen, from the costume he wore while filming Attack of the Clones.
Painstaking, right. Well, there's a lot of it.
It gets everywhere, you know.
Yeah, I'd like to see something else.
I can tell you drive a hard bargain in a pickup truck. I have here the manuscripts of 2 books not even yet in the publisher's hands.
Well, that's intriguing.
Everything you need to know about Episode 9 by Jason Ward, and why do these Joe and Chris guys keep tweeting me about Barbecue by Val Kilmer.
Right, I think I'd rather wait for those to get to the store.
Okay. Let's see what else I have. Lots of Rogaine. No, you have a manly dinner there. Missing plans to the Funko Pop Dengar. No. Skirtle. Oh! Alright, sir. Feast your eyes on this.
Gross. Is that a bag of dog poop?
Not just any ordinary bag of dog poop. This, my good sir, is the hermetically sealed leavings of Carrie Fisher's little pal, Gary the dog. Reportedly picked up by the late, great, lovely lady herself.
I'm going to regret asking this, but why is there sand in it?
That sand gets everywhere, sir. Interested?
No. I have to pick that up myself all the time.
Could I interest you in the latest in female fashion? Force chokers?
No.
How about this?
What is it?
A nub.
A nub from what?
The endangered yub.
A yub? Nub? Well, no thanks.
Well, sir, of course you wouldn't want any of that. I can tell you are a man of fitness and exercise. How about a midi-chlorian drink mix? It comes with the force cleansing power of 9 mediocre Jedi, if ingested, and 10 mediocre Jedi, if used on a clogged drain. It's midi-chlorophyllicious.
That sounds destabilizing.
Okay, for you, sir, I have some rare props never seen in the movies. First is this.
A skeleton?
No, sir. It's Wedge's spine. He was supposed to have lost it at the Battle of Yavin, only to have it re-implanted before the Battle of Hoth. No? Okay. Well, this little item was with Padme Amidala every step of the way, from the Phantom Menace to her unfortunate end in Revenge of the Sith.
It's a piece of dental equipment.
I present Padme's loyal retainer.
Why is it covered in saliva?
I like to keep it fresh and flexible for the customer, sir.
Gross.
Okay, sir. This is sure to grab your attention. The genuine real article here. Melted ice from Hoth.
It's a wet bag of sand.
Again, sir.
It gets everywhere. Look, I really have to go.
Wait. Before you make that mistake, I have one last item for you to consider, good sir. Be prepared to get ready to be overly enthused about what is coming next. From the secret source of the most rarest of the rare Star Wars collectibles, I present to you this.
What, a roll of toilet paper?
Not just any roll of toilet paper. This once belonged to Lando Calrissian himself.
This is Lando's toilet paper?
Yes, sir. This is the Tanabian toilet paper. Guaranteed highest quality performance for any and all little maneuvers or manures. Slightly used.
Fine, I'll take it. How much?
$29.99 plus tax.
I'll give you a quarter.
Sold! Thank you, sir. You will not regret this day.
I already do.
Thank you for your patronage, sir. Remember to come back and visit the Never Time Around shop for all your rare collectible needs. Guy Salesman, owner and proprietor. We are not on Amazon or the internets, but if you come to Schenectady, New York Municipal Golf Course, I have a laptop with all our items on it.
Oh, you golf?
No, sir, that's where I reside.
Okay. Well, thanks, I guess. At least it's too polite.
It's time for...
Silence, fools!
All right. First, our friend Amy Wishman asked on Twitter when we'll be getting to Darth Bane Rule of Two. That is the second book in the Bane trilogy we are covering for our summer book club with Jay Krebs. Right now, we are aiming to have that episode on July 18. The next episode of this show is going to be an abbreviated one because of our vacation plans. But and we also have the 4th of July holiday coming up. So look for a very pared down episode next week. So we didn't want to try and fit Rule of Two in there. We wanted to take our time with it and do the justice it deserves. So look for that July 18th and hopefully not later. But so far we've had a good response to our book club. That was a lot of fun to do with Jay last time. Yeah, it really was. And speaking of a good response, Otter Gar, who is at Slowbrony on Twitter, tweeted they just finished reading this. He means Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, for the 5th time last night. Love this trilogy. Bane is the best. Sith Lord, sorry, Vader. Wah, wah, wah. And then we've also got some more. Rob Pet Cow. Mad Cow of Genius. This is called by his Twitter handle. Sorry, Rob. Then responded to that with an image of Darth Bane's lightsaber from Genesis Custom Sabers. Oh, this is the dude with the awesome sabers. That's right. The website is genesiscustomsabers.com. So go check that out. Yeah, he's got like a Bane twisted handle or like bent. Curved. Thank you. With the hooks on it. And yeah, it's really cool. And he's got one of the images on there is on his website is the maker himself, Drew Karpyshyn, holding the sabers. And they're pretty awesome looking. I gotta tell you, I don't know. I can't remember checking out the price, but I was thinking, man, I think that was exclusive, one-off. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that thing's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And I think he said he was did he say he was putting it up for sale soon? I don't know. I think that was that website was established a couple of years ago, but I could be wrong. I could have sworn I saw he said something like that. So I don't know. Go check it out. And hey, maybe you'll be the lucky owner of that if it's the case. But yeah, Drew Karpyshyn responded to that picture and that tweet with, yes, back when my hair was short by choice. I miss those days. We all do, Drew. We all do. Yeah, that was cool. I liked seeing the saber, and it was fun that Drew Karpyshyn chimed in there as well on that one. So it reminds me of the Darth Bane cosplay that I saw at Celebration. Yeah, it's actually on the show image that we did for the Orlando Roundup is what that episode was called. Yeah, cool. So go check it out. It's a really great cosplay. All right. Well, we enjoy hearing from you, Scoundrels. We really like iTunes reviews and emails. So, you can write us at sqpod@retrozap.com, and we hope to read your review or email in Scienceful next time. All right. Well, it's been a while since we did a top 10, but it was fun having Joey here to help us out with that. If that's a top 10, I'd hate to see the bottom. Right. Well, Scoundrels, thank you for listening and for your support. If you enjoyed the show, this has been Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, and we would love a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, especially iTunes, which is also known as Apple Podcasts. If you didn't care for this, then we request you please put away the Camino Saber darts. We are out of the antidote at the moment. In all seriousness, we appreciate it anytime you share our show posts on Twitter and Facebook. Please let others know that you're listening. Thanks to our dedicated listeners that have taken the time to share our show with others. It does help us grow. We are on social media. Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels can be followed on Twitter at SQPod and liked on Facebook where we are facebook.com/SQPod. If you want to follow Darth Taxus on Twitter, he is at Darth Taxus, and I can be followed at DJKVER2. In addition to social media, you can reach us by email at sqpod@retrozap.com. We'd love to hear your favorite humorous moments from Star Wars. Have anything else that is on your mind? Well, it doesn't need to be Star Wars related, just let us know. The best emails, which is almost all of our emails, end up in Silencefuls, and sometimes our Twitter posts and Facebook feedback as well. But you can reach us at sqpod@retrozap.com. As always, we are honored to be part of the retrozap.com podcast network. Please check out RetroZap for the other great shows, including Brews and Blasters, the ArgCast, the Deucecast Movie Show, Dunecast, Skywalking Through Neverland, Classic Marvel Comics, Talking Apes TV, Techno Retro Dads, the Trade Federation, We Know Nothing, the Animanicast,
which, you should check out. Check out Joey's stuff. Beltway Banthas, The Sandcrawler, and Kanata's Castle.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff going on in the Retro Zap shows right now. Thanks to Aaron Lay for our show logos, and James Volpe, also known as the Sky Geek, for the good, the bad, and the ugly show logo. And here's our disclaimer. Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels is not endorsed, affiliated with, or sponsored by Lucasfilm Limited and or Disney. This show is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All characters, music, and sounds are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. All else is the intellectual property of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, unless otherwise indicated. Well, that was a fun show. Got any final thoughts, Taxus?
If you need a laugh, send in the clowns. And if you need to attack Geonosis, send in the clones. They can't all be good.
Right. Yeah. Well, that'll do it for episode 31 of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Always, thanks for listening and joining us this week. We'll catch up with you next time, and may the Force be with you.
Those blasting, nasty.
Everything's perfectly all right. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
I've been better.
Well, tell me what's up.
Well, I'm in this relationship, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I like her, but we're not really connecting.
How long's it been?
About 10 months.
And how often do you see each other?
A couple of times a week.
Well, why don't you try seeing each other a little more often and see if you connect a little more? And if not, it may be time to move on. Thanks for calling. This is Han Solo, and I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours right here on the Midnight Shift.
Something's telling me it might be you. It's telling